again, Michael Ware with Controlled Chaos Arms. I've got with me Ryan Hoover today from Nightlong Industries, and we wanted to talk with everybody about night vision. The short version here is I'm incurring a learning curve myself. I don't know a lot about night vision, but I know I'd like to. I'm trying to balance what I think the needs are for night vision and where the needs aren't versus thermal and where each fit and under what circumstance. So Ryan's been very kind to bring over product samples and help us out with demos and vice versa, and we thought it was a good idea to address some people's concerns out there on the internet about what they may try to use or what they may try to understand, because most of this stuff is what a lot of people would consider high ticket and high dollar items. So it's wise if we have a good understanding of what we're getting into before we buy something that we may not need or we may not have the full value in. So I want to ask Ryan if you could address everybody and kind of give us a night vision 101 on basically what consumers need to be cognizant of when they look for their first purchases and what things are out there. So if you could go over night vision and thermal real quick, that would be helpful for us.
Sure. So the three predominant types of night vision that are out there currently, they call them different generations. There's a Gen 1, Gen 2, and a Gen 3. Gen 3 is the latest technology. This is kind of the best and the greatest. Until recently, the U.S. is about the only manufacturer of any sort of Gen 3 item. The Gen 1s and Gen 2s that are currently on the market are most often produced from Russia, European countries, that sort of type of manufacturers. The majority of the systems I sell are Gen 3 units, so that they're fairly high dollar, very high quality, but I believe that you definitely get your money's worth with the Gen 3.
Okay.
I don't currently stock or sell any Gen 1s. To be quite frank, I've never stumbled across a Gen 1 unit that I have found to be worth the time or the money that you invest into it versus the rewards you gain from it. For most of the Gen 1 systems I've used and played with, you'd honestly be better off just buying a better flashlight for your weapon, a better flashlight for using. They really don't work very well as a viewing device without large amounts of IR light.
So you're telling me that Joe Blow, who says to you or says to himself, I think I'll save a few bucks and buy Gen 1, and he wants to, let's say that he wants to see coyotes at, which is, a German Shepherd or smaller sized animal at 400 yards, and he thinks he can do that with an average night. I mean, that's not realistic.
With Gen 1, that's going to be pretty much impossible.
Okay.
You'd honestly be able to see him probably just as well looking through your scope, realistically.
All right.
As you and I both are aware, one of the concerns for us in living in Iowa is you can't use any sort of IR light. Some of the older units for hunting purposes, correct? Yes. So for some of the older units using Gen 1, Gen 2 systems, in low light conditions, they really need IR light to help them work better.
All right.
If you want to be out hunting on some of the dark nights, or if it's overcast out, realistically, you're not going to be able to do it very well without using some sort of IR light, which is definitely a factor for those of us living in states where the IR light's illegal to use.
Okay.
That being said, there are some Gen 2 units I do sell. The Legionnaire clip-on here is available with a Gen 2 unit. There's a couple binoculars I sell that have Gen 2 in them.
Okay.
Price point is a little bit more attractive than the Gen 3. They're usually around 60 to 70% of the price of whatever the same Gen 3 unit or an equivalent Gen 3 unit would be.
Okay.
The downside of that, Gen 2 I would best describe as it's about an 80% solution. So 80% of the normal nights, if barring any excessive overcast, any solar eclipse that there's no stars, there's no sunlight at all, it'll work pretty well, be usable. That being said, Gen 3 will work better on any given one of those nights.
Okay. I want you to back up for a minute so we can help some people, because you and I talked about this one other time. Let's say that I have this setup that you're looking at right here.
Sure.
Okay. LMT rifle, Vortex optics, and the Legionnaire sitting on top of it as a clip-on sight or a clip-on night vision. So I can see well. I mean, I could let's say that I can define that by saying I can see a moving coyote easily at 600 yards on an average night.
Sure.
Okay, so in Gen 3. If I switch to Gen 2, how will that change? Are you saying that I would be less likely to see them, or I could see that animal only if it were closer? How do I quantify that so I can understand what
Sure.
Gen 2 and Gen 3 will do for me and what they won't?
So the big differences between Gen 2 and Gen 3 are Gen 3 is a lot more efficient at taking whatever ambient light and magnifying it.
Okay.
Just the way the night vision works, it's magnifying the ambient light to produce an image. Gen 3 is significantly more efficient at that.
Okay.
The other benefit with Gen 3, especially the newer units, is they have much higher resolution. So if you want to compare, Gen 2 would be like looking at an analog TV, and Gen 3 is looking at a 1080p HD TV.
Okay.
So you will lose a lot just in the pixelation of the image for the resolution side.
Right.
If you add that in with the lower gain of the light amplification going through the unit, where you might be able to see something at 600 yards under normal light with this unit in a Gen 3, nice Gen 3 image intensifier in it, the exact same unit with Gen 2, you might be realistically looking at 300 yards.
Okay. Well, it's important. It's also important, I think, for people to try and understand. While that does look like a tube and basically a little add-on scope, it isn't grabbing light and just shoving it through a series of little crystal discs. I mean, it isn't an optic in the sense that it's got a series of lenses, really.
Correct.
And I think that it's important for people to try and understand that, because at first I'm not ashamed to admit the fact I didn't know that. I didn't know that that thing gathers light and image and pushes it electronically onto basically a little screen at the back end of the scope. I mean, is that an apt description, or?
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate description of how it works. And
so it's all electronics from front to back, basically.
correct.
Yeah.
And you can look at this unit. I'd say the biggest difference between most night vision optics and the traditional day optics that people are used to, scopes and the red dots and that type of stuff. As we discussed earlier, you know, what this has under the hood, the actual image intensifier that's producing the image, there are tens of thousands of different specifications types out there.
Yeah.
So you could buy this exact same unit, and you buy one and yours has, you know, pretty good gain, not very many blemishes, and fairly decent resolution. Somebody could buy the exact same tube, you know, a little bit different tube inside of it, and it might have better resolution and much better gain, everything else considered.
Huh.
Each one of these image intensifiers coming off the line has a little bit different specs and a little bit different capabilities.
Okay.
As we kind of talked about earlier, it's almost like buying a car without looking under the hood. You might be buying the exact same car as your neighbor, but yours might have the little 4-cylinder in it, and he's got the turbocharged V8.
Okay.
So
I follow. Okay. Well, what areas have we not covered that people should be considering for the first time as buyers? I mean, and even those people who already own something today, I have customers that have gone out and bought what they consider to be high dollar ATN or something like that. And I had thought, from what I had read, that they were kind of a lesser quality optic as compared to some. I really don't want to get into the brand name so much at this point,
Sure.
but to understand what should we be looking for as first time buyers, and what things we should be weighing.
sure, I think the big thing is look for reputable manufacturers, both that are building the equipment. As you stated earlier, I build a lot of the units, the binocular and monocular systems myself, using factory assemblies. Some of the stuff like the clip-ons I buy as complete units, but I spec out what I want for image intensifiers in them. So just really look at who you're buying from, are they reputable, and what sort of processes do they have to build their equipment. There's a lot of the binoculars, there's a lot of people who put their own binoculars together, to be quite honest. I've seen several that look great, they work great. You know, little stuff here and there, but other than that, they're pretty functional, save some money that way. Probably as many or more that I saw like that, though, I saw that had been assembled incorrectly, they'd done damage to components, or they were having issues with it, and they sent it to me to fix it. So you have to kind of watch out where you're buying from. Take that into mind, you know, ask some questions about the background of it and where it came from. And the other nature of the business is up until recently, the vast majority of the business was on the military side, in law enforcement, government agencies. Kind of try to find, you know, feel out for, you know, is this a legitimate unit? Did this come from a night vision company? Did this come from a known seller of products, or, you know, is this kind of one of those that fell off the back of the truck, and you know, where did it come from? Yeah. So there's some of those issues.
Yeah.
The vast majority of stuff out there you're not going to have any issues with,
Yeah.
but if you come across a screaming deal on kind of an oddball unit or something that just seems too good to be true,
Yeah.
that never hurts to ask some
So if
questions.
it's beat up pretty bad, but it's a smoking good deal, yeah, okay, I hear you.
It's got all the Uncle Sam's accessories with it. You know,
Yeah.
you might take that into consideration.
All right. So if it has an NSN number on it, we should skip it. All right. All right. I follow. Okay. Well, those are some of the things that I wanted to try and cover and see if we could help some people with, and just to give somebody a little bit of basic clarity on what we're talking about. We want to do a series of videos like this, so this is all relevant things or relevant topic. Again, Nightlong Industries. Ryan Hoover was kind enough to come over to the shop, so patronize him. That's nightlongindustries.com. Is that right?
Nightlong IND.
IND. Okay. Of course, he's got a Facebook presence and the whole 9 yards, so check him out there, and we'll go from there. So, Michael Ware, CCA, signing off. As always, give us a holler, and we'll help you if we can. Thanks.